How you doing? How you been? Hope you're doing well. My name is James and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about this little guy right here. This is my septum piercing that I just got a couple of weeks ago. And I kind of want to do this video from a little bit of a different perspective and sort of offer some thoughts that I haven't seen talked about here on YouTube. So just a little bit of a background. A septum piercing wasn't something that I wanted for like a long time. It just kind of happened on a whim. I recently got my ears pierced, and so I went down on November the 7th for a checkup, just to kind of make sure the lobes are healing nicely and get shorter posts. And the day before I went, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I'm kind of thinking about getting a septum ring. I've seen a bunch of people on social media have it. It looks really cool. I think it's something I might like. And so when we went down there to get my ear checkup, I was talking to my piercer, who is Monica at Shorty Piercing in West Palm Beach. I'll put a link to their page down in the description. But I was asking them about sort of like the pain, the healing process, types of jewelry I can use, options, and different things like that. And after talking to them for a little while, I decided I did want to go ahead and do that. And so as they were getting stuff ready for the new post to go in my earlobes, we tried to make an appointment online for the next day, and something happened with the calendar app on their website, and so it wouldn't work. So when they came back out to get me to do the checkup, we're like, hey, we want to go ahead and do this. We tried to schedule it online, but we couldn't get it to work. What can we do? And Monica said, I literally just had a cancellation for the appointment right after you guys today, so we can do it today if you want to. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go ahead and do it. So there wasn't like a whole lot of time for me to build up nerves or overthink things, because that's what happened with my earlobes. Like, I had some time to think about it, and I got nervous. It was all in my head, really, and they didn't actually hurt that bad at all. These are a 14 gauge. So yeah, I decided to go ahead and do it that day. I went in for a checkup, walked out with a septum ring. So I do want to mention a couple things before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. First off, I would not recommend doing this on a whim. I wish I had really planned it, because one thing I do recommend is trimming your nose hairs before you go. If you're a dude, I don't know, dudes grow long nose hairs for some reason, but trim your nose hairs. And the reason why that is because the ring will tickle your nose hairs, and you'll want to rub your nose or touch it. And that's not something you want to do. If you rub your nose after you just get this thing put in, it's going to hurt like hell. So trim your nose hairs. Also clean out your nose, because you don't want somebody looking down into your nose and it be all kind of gross and crusty in there. And that's just not cool for anybody. So trim your nose hairs, clean it out before you go. The other thing is I have obstructive sleep apnea, so I have to wear a CPAP every night. And if you don't know what that is basically a machine that helps you breathe so you don't die in your sleep. And so I have to wear one of these little masks. And this is a medium-sized mask. This is just a little nasal one. So if you wear a CPAP, you know what I'm talking about. After I got the piercing, I remembered what's going to happen when I have to put my mask on. And luckily, because there's just like this little flap right here in open space in here, it doesn't really interfere. I can put my mask on. I do it kind of slow. So that little thin piece of rubber right there will sometimes brush against the bottom of the balls. That's giggity. But it's not that big of a deal. Now, if you put it on and then press down, yeah, it'll push down your nose, and it is a little uncomfortable. But as long as you put it on slowly, and this is something I had to do, I had to consciously think about how I put on my mask and take it off every night. So you just have to be slow about it. Just slip it on, and then you're good to go. So that's not going to get in your way. If you wear a smaller mask than this, because this is pretty small, even though it's a medium, it's still pretty small. If you wear a smaller mask than this, I would recommend getting a shorter jewelry that comes, to the bottom of your nose. Mine is hangs down just a little bit more. But yeah, wearing a mask, no issue at all. So let's get into cost. The total cost for the piercing was $90. The jewelry was $50. Anodizing and changing colors was free. That's included. And then the piercing itself was $40. So with the jewelry, you really only have two options. You have the horseshoe ring, kind of like this, or you can have a circular ring that goes around. My issue is that with my job, we've been working from home since March of 2020, but we're eventually going to go back into the office. So I'm like, I might have to hide this thing. So with the ring, with the horseshoe ring, you can actually flip it up and hide it inside of your nose. And the only people who might see it are like people shorter than you who are looking right up at your nose. But other than that, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. The other thing is, I thought of this afterwards. I'll probably be wearing a mask most of my day because I'll be around people a lot. So, I mean, I guess I could have gotten a ring, a circular ring, but I'm okay with a horseshoe. As for the colors, purple and teal is kind of like my favorite color combination. Purple's my favorite color. And so what we did was we got the teal bar to match my hair, and we got the purple balls because purple. And then, if you look at my tattoo here, it's purple and teal. So everything in my office here is purple and teal. So that worked out pretty well, and I'm really actually happy with it. So let's talk about pain, then we'll get into healing and cleaning. So it was a little bit more painful than getting my ears pierced. And when they do the septum, and if you're curious about this piercing at all, you've probably seen a lot of videos. And what they do is there's a sweet spot in your nose, right below the cartilage up here, and then right above sort of like the base of your nose, there's a real thin membrane. I don't know if it's like a super thin cartilage or some kind of membrane, but if they pierce that, it's not too bad. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube use forceps. Monica did not. They used a receiving tube and the needle and just kind of lined it up that way and went in. The initial piercing itself was probably about a 3. It did make my eyes water a lot. Just because it's connected to tear ducts and all that stuff, and it's going to happen. Some people say they sneeze. Thankfully, I did not, because that would probably suck. What did hurt a little more was when the needle is actually in the nose, and then they had to get the ring in there and then get all that screwed on. All that was about 30 seconds or so. That was pretty uncomfortable. I would say that part, the pain went up to about a 4.5 out of 10. So it was pretty uncomfortable. But it wasn't like a sharp stinging pain. It was just like this weird, dull sensation. It's hard to describe, but it wasn't unbearable or anything like that. And I have a low tolerance for pain, and I have really high anxiety. So I was surprised I even got my ears done. But once I got my ears done, I was like, I want more piercings. So just kind of on a whim did the septum, and it wasn't that bad. Thankfully, there wasn't a whole lot of time for me to think about it. Like I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a whole lot of time for me to think about it, kind of build up all this worry in my mind. We just went ahead and did it and got it over with. And like I said, it really wasn't that bad. So healing and cleaning is where things get a little different. For the first 3 days after the piercing, my nose was pretty sore. It kind of felt like when you have a cold and you blow your nose a lot, or rub your nose, or wipe your nose on your sleeve, which you probably shouldn't do, that's kind of gross, but wipe your nose a lot, that the tip feels just raw after a while. That's kind of what it felt like for about 3 days. It wasn't terrible. What I would do is I'd just get up in the morning, take about 4 ibuprofen, and I was good. If you can't take ibuprofen, take some Tylenol, kind of just take the edge off, really. On the 4th day, it wasn't really raw anymore, but my nose was kind of sore to the touch. And what's still kind of painful is when the crusties build up on the ring. They kind of build up on the ring and the skin at the same time. And so when the jewelry moves, it's kind of like a sharp little pain. So you have to be careful about touching it or even it moving around, because that does sting a little bit. But I'll get into that a little bit later. Like I said, touching your nose hurts. last Sunday, I was making popcorn and just kind of forgot about the piercing. And I do this thing where, like, when I rub my nose, I open my hand up like this, and the tip of my nose is actually pretty flexible. So I would rub my nose like this, like really fast. That's just, I don't know. People think it's weird. It's normal to me, but I completely forgot about the ring being there, and I went up half a wave or whatever. And believe me when I tell you, it felt like my soul left my body, and I would just want to drop to the floor. It hurt so bad. That was like 4 times worse than the actual piercing. It ripped the skin a little bit. It did start to bleed. It didn't bleed a whole lot, but I mean, enough to where it felt like I had to start the healing process all over again. But it did bleed for a little bit. But since then, I haven't had that issue again. I'm always conscious about, even like I catch myself going to start touch my nose and I have to stop. And I think the day after, when I took a shower, I had to think about that too, because like when the water runs over your face, the first thing you want to do is wipe your face, and you can't do that. Like I stopped myself that time. But last weekend when I was making popcorn, I don't know what happened. I just forgot, and it was the worst. So yeah, just, as you're healing, make sure you're not touching it, bumping your nose, all that good stuff. If you have to touch your piercing, wash your hands really good, because germs travel and you don't want to get an infection, because it'll, that stuff will get infected and you'll start to see pus, and it's kind of gross. Thankfully, I haven't had an issue yet. I haven't had that issue, and probably won't. I'm not going to have that issue because I wash my hands. So let's talk about cleaning. So twice a day, what I do is I use Neil Med Aftercare Fine Mist piercing aftercare, and basically what I do is I put it right up and squirt it right up. Oh, that's terrible aim. I squirt it right up on the piercing on each side of my nostril, let it sit there for a few minutes. And normally what I'll do is, after I spray it, I have to clean my ears anyway, so I'll just let that sit there and kind of soften up all the crusties and all that good stuff. And then what I'll do is I'll take a Q-tip, wet a Q-tip really good with the spray. I don't use just tap water. And then I'll just kind of gently wipe around that area, wipe around the piercing, and then kind of once that stuff is loose enough, I can spin the jewelry and kind of clean the jewelry off. Be very careful when you're using the Q-tips. You don't want to use a dry Q-tip because it could, like the little fibers could flake off and get stuck up there, and that's just going to cause an issue as well. Probably the better idea is to use sterile gauze. You can buy like little packs of them. They just come like 2 in a little pack. That's probably the best idea to do. And then at night, what I'll do is, after I spray both sides, I'll let it sit there while I brush my teeth and then do the cleaning again. I will at night take dry gauze and kind of like just dry the area off a little bit. That's the only difference that I do at night. During the day after I work out, I take a shower, and in the shower, to clean out my nose, to like just fully clean out my nose, what I'll do is, I'll cup my hands like this. And I learned this from Monica down at Shorty's Piercing. Cup my hands like this, let the water fill that up, and then I'll put it up to my face like this and blow bubbles with my nose. And what that does is it washes water up into the nose, and it kind of softens everything in there. And I can just blow my nose in the shower, and I'll repeat that process a few times. So I'll blow the water, blow my nose, blow the water, blow my nose. And that kind of gets all that stuff cleaned out. And then after a shower, I'll take some gauze and just kind of, clean everything up. And that's basically my care routine. So it has been 2 weeks. It doesn't hurt very much at all, except for, when the crusties are dry and that piercing moves around a little bit, it does sting. But as time goes on, I get less and less crusties. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue, maybe a week or so from now. But that's really about it. I keep the cleaning really simple because you don't want to over clean it, because that'll just, irritate the piercing. That can cause issues. It could prolong the healing. I don't use the saline solution, but twice a day, and that's it. And so cleaning is just kind of a simple process as long as you make sure to clean it and all that good stuff. So it's a pretty painless piercing to do. Healing is not that bad. Cleaning is not that much of a pain. I'm really glad that I did it. If you're thinking about doing it, if you're an older dude, because I was a little worried about that too. What are people going to think about some older dude? I'm only 43. Having a septum piercing, and then I kind of thought, who really cares? I don't care. I'm just going to do it because I like it. I think it's cool. I will say this: if you have to flip it up for work, you want to flip it up on Monday and then flip it down on Friday. If you mess with it a whole lot, again, it's just going to cause irritation to your nose and to the piercing. It's best just to leave it alone as much as possible. So thankfully, we're still working from home, so I don't have to worry about hiding it. I can just let it sit there, let it heal. It is tempting to play with it. You just have to be conscious of that, and you're going to want to touch it and play with it. Just don't. Because as soon as you touch it and that you feel that little sharp pain, you're pretty much going to leave it alone anyway. But then also, make sure you wash your hands and stuff. So I think that about covers everything. If you're thinking about getting the septum, do consider it because it's really cool piercing. I like it. I think it looks great. In the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you are planning on getting your septum pierced, let me know. And until next time, be well, be safe. Now let's do the thumbnail real quick.